All right, so this week, in week 7, lab 7, we're kind of going to continue to do kind of some maintenance, but at the very end, we're going to get ready to actually build a whole new table. And as you guys know from last lab, the whole idea is we're kind of getting ready to add pricing to our database. We're going to store prices and all that kind of stuff. But what's really cool is at the end of lab 7, the very last step is we have this really cool step where we're actually going to use a select statement to gather an entire table's worth of data, so it's ready to be inserted. Because believe it or not, we can actually bulk insert into a table with a select statement. And that's what we're going to do in lab 5. Now, let me go through the instructions up till we get up to that point. Um, and then I kind of have like a little demo that I'd like to show you that I think might be a little bit simpler or a more common thing that we're used to seeing that I think might help. Let me see if I can blow this up just a tad bigger. All right, so step 1, we're going to insert some new rows into the common lookup table to support the active flag in the price table. So now, just to give you an idea of how this works, what the active flag is, consider the example when we're at the grocery store. And there's sales happening all the time. Well, let's say that milk is normally 250. Just kind of thinking basic Walmart prices. Let's say milk is normally $2.50. Well, you take that up to the cash register and it's going to scan it, and it has to be able to pull up that it's $2.50 based on the item. Well, now consider that a sale started today. You go to get another gallon of milk, it needs to be able to scan that and know that, oh, now the price is let's say it's 50 cents off, so it's $2. Well, we need a way to control which price we want to charge. But beyond that, the real issue is we need to keep a historical record of what we're charging for our items, because I'm sure we'll keep a transaction log, oh, so and so bought this for X number of dollars. But we want to be able to keep track of our historical prices so that if we ever get audited by the IRS, we can say, hey, look, we have record showing that we made this much money because even at this time this is what we were selling that milk for. Or if someone brings back, wants to do a refund, you don't want to give them the sale price or whatever. You need to give them the right refund, so we need to be able to keep track of what we charged for our items. So because we're going to have lots of items or lots of pricings in our database, now that we're back to movies, because in our situation we're going to have a price for old movies and a price for new movies. And we need to be able to know what we're going to charge for each one of those items. And so at any given time, we're going to have a price that is active for any given combination of things that we're going to purchase or order our products. And I'm going to show you a quick example of kind of how that's going to work later on. So that's step 1, and we're just inserting into common lookup. And then step 2, we're going to insert 3 new rows into common lookup to support the price type. And this is just our 1-day, 3-day, and 5-day rentals. And you'll notice that we have to insert 6 total records because we have to do price type, which is 1, 3, and 5, and then rental item type 1, 3, and 5. Because these correspond. If I have a rental item type of 1, then I should get charged the price for price type of 1, and so on and so forth, because we are going to charge so many dollars for each day of the movie. And so that's pretty simple. We've done that quite a bit, inserting new rows. All right, and this is where it's going to start getting just a little bit tricky or different, I guess. In step 3, we're going to modify our records that we already have, because we already have some rentals. And so our rental item type, we're going to update it for all pre-existing rows, and that's just going to take a little bit of math. So step A, it says update rental item type column with values for all pre-existing rows. And if we take a look a little further down, it actually gives us the solution. Now, you'll notice that it says the following shows you how to update existing rows with the proper values from common lookup table, but it may have a casting error in Oracle database 10G and earlier. Well, great news. We aren't on Oracle Database 10G. We are on Oracle Database 11G. So we shouldn't have any issues. This is actually the solution for that step. Okay, so basically it's going to just take and it's going to do some math. It's going to say, look, take your return date minus your checkout date, and it's going to spit out a number for us. And in this case, like if I say, oh, my return date's 3 days from now, it'll be 3. So then our common lookup code would be 1, 3, and 5. And that's an important thing to remember when you're inserting this. You need to make sure you insert the code because that's what's going to pull that. So if you have an issue with that one further down, make sure that your code is just 1, 3, and 5 because these are the only rows that actually use that code column. All right, so that one should be nice and easy. 3A, it's right there, all good. Now, the only thing that you need to be concerned about is if for whatever reason this doesn't work, we need to check at some of our data, but we can handle that one at a time, and there shouldn't be too many issues this time. All right, and then step B is we're going to add the foreign key to the rental item table, and we've done this before too. There's that simple alter table, rental item, and we add the constraint. And we've added lots of constraints before. Basically, we're just going to add a foreign key constraint on rental item type that references common lookup. And then we add another constraint. We add the not null constraint, which we have done before. We've taken some off. We've added some, I believe. So you're going to alter table rental item, and you're going to add that not null constraint onto rental item. So not too bad. The first few steps aren't really bad at all. Step 4 is traditionally one of the trickier steps of this lab. And so that's kind of what we're going to do. But before we get into the actual lab solution, what I want to talk about is show you what trick we're using in a simpler solution so you kind of get the idea, and then we'll talk a little bit about the logic there. So what I've done here is I've actually made a couple sample tables to kind of simulate a similar situation that might help make a little bit of sense of what we're doing in step 4. So in my example here, I have a lookup table, and this is just like our common lookup, serves the same purpose. And I actually only put two things in there. You'll notice that the common lookup table and column are size and gender, and so on and so forth. And I really should change that to product size to match. There we go. So we have our common lookup, some stuff here, and you'll notice that all this is for sizing. Basically what I've done is I've created kind of like a little sample if we were going to sell like shirts, was kind of what I was thinking, some merchandise. And basically I have different sizes, but as we know, sometimes there's, you have women's sizes, you have men's sizes. And I was going to add unisex, but I just didn't get around to it because I actually just built this a few seconds ago. Few minutes, I guess. And so we have our lookup table, which kind of holds some basic values, like in this case, women's and men's. And then I have a product size, which will hold like our large, extra large. And you'll notice that it has a gender, and that's what connects to our lookup. And so that's kind of what is going to happen. Eventually, we're going to end up with, men's large, men's extra large. Now, we could, manually insert all this data, right? We could do that. But in this case, we know that, okay, we're going to have a small, medium, large, extra large, and let's even say an XXL for every for both male and female sizes. And so what I've done here is I have basically built a kind of a simpler solution as to what we're going to be doing here. So what I've done is we get the lookup display value, which is our men's, women's, and men's. That's what's going to pull there is our display value. And then our size from this. Now, this is what we actually do in step 4, but I want to explain it because it makes sense, because this is actually probably the first time we're going to see a cross join in the class. And so I kind of want to show you what it does, because we're going to use this cross join to save us a bunch of work. Because you can imagine how hard it would be to have to, type out, let's say, um, we'd have to do a subquery. So we'd say select the lookup ID from lookup, where lookup table is equal to blah, 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 basically to where the value is equal to female. You'd have to do that plus put in our and this would be our medium. And we'd have to do that for every size possible combination, our women's small, women's medium, women's large, and then all the way through the men's small, men's medium, men's large, men's XL, men's XXL. It's just a lot of work. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make this a little easier on ourselves with a cross join. Because if you remember right, a cross join multiplies. That's why we don't have to specify an on clause or anything like that. We're going to take and multiply everything. So basically, we're going to take everything from lookup, which just so happens that right now it's just our women's and men's from lookup. So let's actually let's just show this off just a little bit. So if I do select everything from, or let's select displace value, that's what we called it. So, we have women's and men's. That's what's in lookup. And we actually don't have a place that we have small, medium, large, XL, and XXL, because that will eventually go in our product size table. And if I select everything from product size, it will be empty. And because that's where we're going to basically try to put this information into. But I wanted to save some time, so I use this cross join. So what we're going to cross join to is we're going to take women's and men's, and we're going to multiply it by every size: small, medium, large, XL, and XXL. And to do that, what I've done is I've made a temporary table using a bunch of select statements. So if I do select S as P size from dual, basically it's going to give me the S, which is what we want. If I try to do it like this, select S and a medium from dual, you'll notice it puts them in separate columns, which isn't what we want. We actually want this in a list. So to get this in a list, we use union, because that way I can put a bunch of select statements all together and it will create a list for me just like that. So now you'll notice that I have small, they're a little out of order, but I have small, medium, large, XL, and XXL in a list. And that's what we're going to multiply it. So basically we're going to take women's and men's and cross join or multiply it by these values. And so if I do that, you'll notice that we end up with every possible combination, which in this case is exactly what we want. So I'm just going to add a little bit here to make it a little bit nicer, because we're going to order by 1 and then 2. There we go. So now you'll see that we have men's large, men's mediums, men's small, men's extra large, men's XXL, so on and so forth down the chain. Now, one thing that I just realized that I guess we'll get there, because eventually we'd probably want to add like a sequence, so that way a medium or a small is first, followed by medium, so on and so forth. But this will work. But anyways, you can see how that saved us a little bit of time. And that's basically what we're going to do in step 4, but we're going to take it a step further, and we're actually going to cross join twice. So we can simulate this, because then if I said cross join and let's say select, in our case, it's going to be active flag, but let's just say in this case, it's color. So let's say we're going to have two colors of shirts. We're going to have red So let's add a red, and we're going to union that. And we're going to do blue. And I'm just going to give those temporary names so that way we can select them. So then I say T color dot color as color. And now what we're going to get is every possible combination. You'll notice that we have 20 rows now because we have a men's large blue and a men's large red. So, for example, if we were going to be building a database to sell product, you can see how much easier this is than having to individually think about and write all those inserts, because we can add a combination now. Instead of writing an insert statement 20 times for a different color, we can just write one little line here. So let's say all of a sudden we want to add white to our t-shirt colors. Now all of a sudden we can insert all those that easy. So you can see how the cross join, we're really going to use it to I would consider it a clever little hack as you're writing SQL statements to give the results you need. And in this case, we're using it to save us some time because we're just multiplying and getting every possible combination, which in this case, since we had two values in lookup, it ends up being 2 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 3. And that is our total rows for this query. Because we're, like I said, because we're doing cross joins, we're multiplying. And we can do inner joins in here and all that, but the cross join will multiply it by everything we have. So in this case, 2 times 5 is 10, and then we times that by 3, which is 30, and you'll notice we have these 30 rows selected. Does anyone have any questions about this? Does this make sense what we did here to everybody? Does a cross join make sense, or do we need to kind of just break it down just a little bit more? So no, the union is required if we're making a list here, and because we're creating a fabricated list, it is required. Like if I took this out, it would be an issue. But where we're making a list, it's required. But like in our database, sometimes we'll use a list and sometimes we'll use pre-existing values, just like we did with display. So for example, if I select, let's say the item title, item title from item, let's just take a look here. Oh, and apparently it's not item title. What is it? Let's just look it up. Apparently it is. Oh, I forgot the alias. All right. So for example, in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to cross join all of our items with a rental type. So our 1 day, 3 day, and 5 day rental. And then we're going to do it by active flag. And our active flag is going to, you'll see that us use lists here. But let's say we wanted to pretend that everybody in our database ordered or rented every movie once. We could select item title, and let's do C dot first name and C dot last name from item I, cross join, contact C. So in this case, we're not going to use the union. We're actually just going to use the table because the table already has a list for us. And so if we do this, we get 286 rows. Basically, everybody has a record for every movie. So in this case, we have to use the union because without it, it's just two select statements. And where we want this to be a table meaning we have many rows, we have to use the union to basically trick the system into saying, look, we have a list here like that. Because otherwise, if I did it without the union, let's just try one. It's actually going to throw an error because we don't have an ending statement. It's going to try to think it's two statements. So it'll say command not properly ended because we're basically what the union does is it takes two select statements and it glues them together vertically. That's how I like to remember it. Because when we do a join, we're gluing together horizontally. But when we do a union, we're making a list and we're gluing together vertically. Does that answer your question? Perfect. All right, so let's segue right into our step 4. Because what we're going to do is we're going to, oh, and I have one more thing to show you. And I don't know if any of you guys have already watched the case statement video that I sent out, but we're also going to add some logic. So let's actually do this real quick. Let's add a case statement, and we are going to just to kind of show off the case statement. We're going to say case when T. Oh, let's do L dot. What do we want to do? What's my L dot value? So let's say that we are going to add our prices right here inside of our database. Let's say we want to charge different prices for different sizes and colors. Okay, so let's start off with a different color. Let's say when T color dot color is equal to red, then we are going to charge, let's say 25. When T color dot color is equal to blue, then 26. And then let's say else T color, or let's just say else, let's say it's $23. So basically what we did is we added some logic here, and you can kind of see what's going to happen. If the color's red, then it's 25. If the color's blue, then it's 26. Otherwise, it's 23. And in this case, just white. And that's kind of what we're going to do with our video database here. So if I do this, now you can see that our prices are all there too, conditionally based on the color of the shirt. So for example, this blue shirt is $26, but our white shirt is 23. Our red shirt is 25. So that's our case statement. We're going to do lots. Now we can embed multiple case statements. And just so you guys know, if you're familiar with other programming languages, this is just like our if statement, because basically we have if T color dot color is equal to red, then we'd have our brackets and, $25. Else if T color dot color is equal to blue, 26, else 23. So it follows the same format. Now let's adjust this just a little bit. So we're going to take this and we're going to add a case statement, and we're going to say when, let's say L dot value is equal to F, which is our women's size, then case when T color dot color. So basically we're going to even segment our prices some more. Right? And we're going to separate between men's and women's. And we know that guys are bigger, so we're charging more for materials. So we're going to charge them $2 extra basically. All right, so now we added some additional logic here because now we have various prices based on whether it's a men's shirt or a women's shirt. So let's make sure this runs first off. That's always a good thing. And there we go. So now we have even more granularity. We added all this logic in our select statement. And that's what's really cool is you can actually add logic in your select statement. Yeah, so right here I could have used an else statement. The reason I didn't is because then this is where you have to think ahead just a little bit because I want this script to rerun over and over. And I know that male and men's and women's may not be the only sizing categories that I use. For example, I might add a youth category or I might add a unisex category. So ultimately deep down I actually did that because I might add another category. And actually let's do it just to show you how easy it would be to add another category. So instead of men's, we are going to add youth sizing. And now, let's say that I'm never going to add unisex. It's just going to be men's, females, and youth. Now I could just say else L dot value. Now, in the case of pricing, normally you would probably want to be granular all the time. So normally what I would do is I would say L dot value equals Y. Then because youth are going to be a specific kind of case because they'll probably be actually the cheapest of all, which is actually kind of crazy because sometimes they're more, which doesn't make any sense. So let's say that they start at $10, they go to $12, and then they end at $8. And then what I might do is let's say that unisex is our else. And then we could say else and put in our case here. Let's say our unisex is 12, 13, and 11. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but, pricing rarely does. And there we go. Now, I didn't rerun my insert, so let's actually do that real quick. There we go. Now let's try to rerun our select statement. Now this should have all of our youth prices in there too. So you can see how fast we're growing this just with a couple lines of code. But now we have all of our youth pricing, and we don't have any other else's because we don't have any unisex stuff in there yet. The other thing you could do is if you wanted to make sure you catch any possible errors, you could say else, whatever, but then because this is a varchar, you'd have to change those to varchars or something similar, but we'll leave it just like that. But then there's your pricing. And so you can see how that if the case works. Now, the thing about the case that I want to point out real quick, you'll notice that in this case where we have this embedded one, We start out just by saying case, and then we have each of our little blocks, and then we end it with the syntax word end. And that's when it knows, okay, you're done with your logic block. And where this was embedded, we just end. Now on this outer one, you'll notice that often we'll end as, and that's how we give it our column name. So in this case, this whole block here is going to all end as price, just like what shows in the output. You can see that all says price. And so just that end. I want to point that out because, yeah, it's pretty easy to forget. All right, and that should be a pretty nice little segue into what we're going to do in step 4. And what's nice is he actually gives you a great starting point to where you don't really have to do too much other than add the missing information. And just to kind of, but the hardest part of this is understanding the logic here, because we are balancing a few different things. Just like in our little merchandise store, we had size and color. In this one, we have a couple different variables. So for example, we go from item, which is pretty easy, all of our movies, and we cross join every movie with active yes or no. So basically for every movie, we're going to have active yes and active no. And then from there, we're going to cross join that with 1, 3, and 5. So we actually take I times 2 times 3. And we're balancing all that. But the idea behind the logic is we are not only doing our movie prices for right now, but we're going to backdate all of our movie prices. So for example, if we take Hunt for the Red October, when you're done, and we all know that that's an old movie, but Hunt for the Red October is going to have both active flag pricing and active no flag pricing. And where it's an old movie, the ones that have an active flag no are going to be when it was new. So you're going to see prices for old movies that are going to be expensive as if they were new. And all that's going to be based on their release date, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And someone asked, why does the order by have 1, 2, 3? And the order by, if you put numbers, it just goes in the order of columns. So in this case, item ID is column 1. So it's going to sort first by item ID, second by column 2, which is active flag, and then third by price type. Yeah, so it's a nice little shortcut. In fact, you might have seen me do it right here, actually. You'll notice that I did the same thing. The best time to do that is if you're just going quick, because, for example, I could change this to 2, 1. Whoop. If I change that to order by 2, 1, then it's going to sort it by the product size and then by the gender or the size category. So now you'll notice that it goes all of our larges, men's, women's, and youth, all of our mediums, men's, women's, and youth, versus having all the men's, all the women's, all the youth. So it's just a little shortcut, especially if you're not quite sure what your column is going to be. If you know the order specifically, it's nice because you don't have to type out the whole word. It's just easy to throw it in. So you'll come across that pretty frequently. But okay, let me save this and let's actually go to new file, and we're going to do SQL. Because one thing that we're going to do real quick is we are going to kind of show what this is going to do just a little bit. Because in our right here, in fact, I'm just going to take and copy this. Just take and copy that and paste it right in here. Okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to kind of fill in the blanks here just a little bit. Because we really want to, everything is going to basically be categorized or priced, it's all dependent upon the age of the movie, so its release date, and whether it's the active price or the non-active price, which are going to be inverse just a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is work on this active flag. And actually, this is a little bit weird. That shouldn't be active flag. What I'm going to change that to is we're going to change that as start date, because we need to know when we're going to start pricing movies. I'm guessing they just kind of put that there as a quick little example here, because we're going to have a start date, and then we're also going to have an end date. When did we stop charging prices for movies? So I'm going to put those in there real quick. All right. And let's take a look, because we're not going to have our inner join there. So we'll have to take that out. But anyways, so for our start date, when are we going to start charging this price for a movie? Well, like I said, that's all dependent upon the release date of the movie. So what we're going to do is we're going to start working on our logic here. And this is where we have to put on our problem solving hats and think through the problem, which is where understanding the business logic is important. So what I like to do is I like to pick a movie and work through the logic myself for each column. So in this case, start date. When did we start charging for a movie? So let's think of Hunt for the Red October. Let's start with a new movie. What's a new movie? Let's say the new Disney Mulan. Okay, we're gonna say the new Disney Mulan. So let's take a think at that. So we know that we're gonna pretend it's less than 30 days old. So first of all, we need to determine if the movie's less than 30 days old. So we're gonna say, okay, take today and subtract release date. And that will tell us how old the movie is, how many days. And if that's less than or equal to 30, then we know that it's a new movie. And so that's kind of the first little bit. But then if we think Hunt for the Red October, and this is kind of where it gets tricky, because we also have to take in consideration old movies that are new. Now we could write multiple then statements. So for example, if a movie is new, then the pricing started on the day that it came out, right? So then we could just say release date. But now let's think about Hunt for the Red October. So if it's an old movie, right? Greater than 30 days. But the difference is its active flag will be set to no, because it's old pricing when it was new. So we started charging Hunt for the Red October. We started charging its new movie prices when it first came out, right? So then we want to say then release date. But otherwise, we started charging the prices for all old movies, whether they're new now or going to be old, or they already are old. Then we say else release date +1, or not +1, +31. Because if it's Hunt for the Red October, right now it's old, so it fits this category. But if its active flag is no, then we started charging on the day it came out, because that was when it was new. But if it's current Hunt for the Red October and the active flag is yes, then it's release date, the day it came out, plus 31 days. So 31 days after it came out is when we started charging for that movie. So let's actually take a look. And so I'm going to just doctor this just a second here, because we don't have those fields in our database. let's take those out. There we go. And I'm actually going to take out these since we're not using them. We'll build those in just a minute. So let's just grab this, and we're just going to see how this works. And what did I miss here? Let me fix formatting so we can find where the error might be. Oops. Okay, so we select the item ID and as start date from item I, cross join that, cross join that. Okay, that should work. Let's see. Let's try that now. It may not like that I have tabs. I release date identifier, describe item. Item underscore release date. So let's fix that up. And that's one thing you'll kind of learn about Oracle is its error messages are far from perfect sometimes. All right. And you'll notice that it's throwing an error on the 3 because I don't actually have a third column. I only have 2. So we're going to fix that and just say order by 1, 2. And there we go. Now, instead of I.item ID for right now, I'm actually going to select the I.item title. So we can see this. Oh, and we also need the active flag. So let's get af.active flag. That way we can make heads and tails of all this. There we go. And line size. There we go. All right, so where is Hocus Pocus? It's Halloween time. That's a great one. So we know that it's an old movie right now. And so if we look at this, the active price, we have 6 columns or 6 records for each movie. We have 3 for when it was active flag is no, and 3 for when active flag is yes. And that's because we have one thing that I forgot is our dr.rental days, because we have those 3 components here. There we go. Now let's find Hocus Pocus. So we have 6 records for each one, 3 for 1, 3, and 5 when it's inactive pricing, and 3 for when they currently are active. And so we know these 3 records here. If you can get to this point, it's actually pretty simple because these 3 records here are going to be when the movie was new. And these 3 records are going to be when it's old but are current, based on when it started. Because you'll notice that, and let's see, did I mess up our, oh, because this is my new movie. I'm like, why did that come out this year? Let's look at a different. Let's look at Hook, because that's the one that I inserted. So if we look at Hook, here we have a better example. So Hook, we know, is old. It came out on December 11th of 1991. And that's when we started charging full price for that movie. But then on the 11th of January, 1992, it became an old movie and we started charging old movie prices. And so now that we have our start date, now we just need to add a couple more columns to kind of make sense. So the other part of this is we need our end date, which is just going to be kind of the opposite of what our start date's going to be. So let's actually just take this. And this step isn't that tricky as far as the sequel. It's tricky because of the logic. So that's why I kind of say if you can figure out what you're trying to do, the code becomes easier. Okay, so we're going to look at this the end date, which is basically just going to be almost the same thing. The only difference is instead of it being 30 days, so on and so forth. So our new movies, we're not going to charge um, an end date. So we're going to get rid of our else statement because like our old movies, we're going to charge those prices forever. And so we can have an end date that's null because we don't know when it's going to end yet. So then we just need to figure out our different, basically, what are we going to put for our movie? So basically, we're just going to get rid of this guy because new movies we haven't figured out yet. We don't know when we're going to quit charging new movie prices. So we're going to just worry about our old ones. And for our old movies, we're just going to say, look, you're an old movie and we quit charging your prices. And I guess I need I dot on these just to be. We quit charging your old movie prices 30 days after you were released. That's because 31 days after you were released, we began charging new movie prices. So this will make sense here in just a minute. So now if we take a look, and it's getting a little bit more messy because our movies here are not that great or are really long titles. So if we look at Hook here, you'll notice that we started charging. Let's see, because this is no. So this is when it was new. So when it first came out on the 11th of December 1991, we started charging these prices. We quit charging those prices on the 10th of January 1991. So 30 days later, we charge new movie prices for 30 days from when the movie comes out. So there we have that. Now you'll notice for Hook, when it was new, it's empty. And we pretended that Hocus Pocus came out 19th October of this year, so it's brand new. And you'll notice that it doesn't have an end date because we haven't quit charging those prices yet, and we're not sure when we will. Now, we could predate them, but we're not going to worry about it right now. And now our last little bit of this is going to be our pricing. So we need a case, and let's just go ahead and throw in our end as price. So now we're going to have our pricing. So we're going to say when, and this is where we have to do that little embedded trick. Because first of all, let's deal with our new movies. Okay. So let's say when, so I put price. I'm not going to do it all the time because you'll notice that I actually cut out a bunch of stuff. So I guess as a forewarning, you're not going to be able to submit what I write here and be done. I'm going to leave some of it off because I don't want to give the entire solution. But yeah, we'll put them out so it's standard. So let's deal with our new movie. So when sysdate minus I dot item release date, right? We're checking for new movies. It's going to be the same thing as what we have right up here. So we can actually steal this. Okay, so it's a new movie. Then we want to charge new movie prices, but we have a 1 day, 3 day, and 5 day rental. So we're going to say when rental days is equal to 1, then we charge $3. And we start really getting our money's worth out of our renters here at those higher ones. All right, so there's our new movie prices. Now what we need to figure out is our old movie prices, um, and there's a couple different ways you could do this. Like I did up here is I built a couple when statements. You could actually say when it's a new movie, then this, and then like I'm going to do, I could say when it's a new movie, or when it's an old movie, sorry. Oh, did I mess something up here? I'm pretty sure I messed something up there. We can fix it. I must have broke that. Is greater than 30. That's what. There we go. Because basically we're going to do the same logic. It's an old movie. So when it's an old movie, oh no, that's what I did. I'm not quite sure what I did there. I think I drugged something. We might have to just rewrite that because I'm not quite sure what happened there without deleting everything. When item release date is less than and equal to 30, flag equals to no, then the start date was item release date. Let's just fix that. There, we should be fixed. All right, so basically I just somehow managed to click and drag, I think, and mess that up. But we have our new movie, obviously, when we started charging when it was new. But then we have our old movies. Now it's fixed. Old movie, but when they were new, that's what that active flag does. Then we have item release date as well. Else, it's 31 days after. So that's basically kind of the same logic we follow throughout. So now we're going to deal with our old movies when they were new. So our active flag is equal to no because they were new. They're no longer active. And then someone asked, can you use the case statement inside of an update statement to create a new column? And the answer is yes. You can use it and I guess I'm going to, in your question, I'm guessing you mean just like insert. So like and that's actually what we're doing here. We are going to take this data that we have now and put it in. You can't make a new column, so to speak. We are creating columns. We're selecting new columns. And yeah, we're going to use that in an insert statement. And you can do the same thing in an update statement as well. And then Breton asks, so no means old and yes means new. Yes, pretty, not necessarily though. It's not that cut and dry, which is a little confusing, but let me finish the pricing and then I think it'll make a little bit of sense because I think the price helps us differentiate between the two records for every item. So when it's basically this is going to be the same pricing. Then else, and let's just take and borrow this because basically we have to deal with three types of movies. We have to deal with movies that are new, brand new, like for example, Mulan, or in my case, like I have Hocus Pocus. But then we have to deal with, so there's just new movies. Then we have to deal with old movies that used to be new, their pricing. And that's when it's an old movie. So it was released greater than 30 days ago. But because it's no longer active, we know that's when it was new. And so its active flag is equal to no. So in this case, no means that it was active in the case that it was an old movie. But, like in this case where it's just a new movie, its active flag is yes because it's currently new. But we may have old movies that, we're currently charging old movie prices for. There's going to be yes as well. So let's actually, we can run this now after we fix these values, because for old movies we charge $1, $3, and $5. So let's see if I actually did fix that missing keyword. Oh, right here. There we go. I'm still missing a keyword. Case and order by. See, it's online. 21. Oh, we need then. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to widen this out just a little bit. And we're going to set line size to 300. Okay, now we'll really be able to see this. So let's take a look at Hook. And we know that Hook is our old movie, right? We're living in the present. Right now, Hook is an old movie. And so if we look at all of Hook's records, you'll notice that we have 6 different records. Half of them are yes, and half of them are no. So let's take a look at the Y right now. The active flag equals Y because that's what we're currently charging. So because it's a because it's an old movie today, we charge $1, $3, and $5 respectively for the number of days that they rent it. So basically $1 a day. So pretty cut and dry. And if we look at the start date, we notice that, clear back since January 11th of 92, we've been charging those prices. They haven't changed for the last, 10, 20 years or, 18 years or whatever it ends up being. 1, 3, and 5. But then if we look at the other records where it's no, so these are all historical records. If you see an active flag no, that means it's purely historical because we're not actually doing it right then. So if we take a look at this, you'll notice that we have this started on the 11th of December 91, which is when the movie came out. And it ended on the 10th of January 92. So for those 30 days from the 11th of December to the 10th of January in 92, we charged $3, $10, and $15 respectively because it was a new movie back then. Does that make sense? These are historical records, and we are charging new movie prices for the 30 days initially after it came out. So you could have more active flag pricings if the price keeps changing, but there will always be a 3 yes. Correct. Yeah. Like let's say we wanted to run a sale. We would create a new record and we would have to end date. So let's say all of a sudden we're saying like, look, Hook is like ancient, right? We're going to not only charge, let's say we want to change the price of our 5-day rental. We're going to cut it in half. If they want to rent it for 5 days, sure, go ahead. We're only going to charge you $4 for it now. If we wanted to do that, we would add a end date to this one of whenever we quit charging $5. And then there would be a new record. And also this would change to no. This would have an end date. And then we would have a new record that would start on whichever day we wanted it to take effect with the new pricing. So yeah, that's a great question. It basically, we're going to keep a running historical record of every price that we've ever had in our database. And so that let's simulate this, right? We're going up to the cash register, and we scan the barcode for hook, right? Basically, what our select statement's going to do is it's going to say, okay, let's take a look and see what price it is. Same thing with our shirts. We're, based on their selection. So, okay, they want to rent it for 3 days. So they scan the barcode, it's hook. Okay, so automatically we're left with our 6 records. Well, automatically we know we don't care about historical records. So we only want hook where active flag is equal to yes. Okay, so we're at 3 records. And they wanted a 3-day rental. So we look to see where rental days is equal to 3 right here. So now we're down to 1 record. So what is the price for that? $3. So when they scan that barcode and click the button for 3-day rental, we have it narrowed down to exactly what our price is going to be. Now let's simulate further. Let's say that we wanted to look up what someone paid for a rental on, let's say, January 1st. It's Christmas, it's a New Year's Eve, big movie rental time. We want to see what someone charged for a movie rental on January 1st, 1992. So on January 1st, 1992 for hook. So again, we're left with our hook, all of them. But we're doing a historical lookup this time. So now we're going to compare dates. So we're going to look and say, okay, he rented it for 3 days on January 1st, 1992. So then we'd say, okay, January 1st, 1992 is January 1st, 1992 between the 11th of December and the 10th of January? Yes, yes, and yes. So then we're left with these 3 records. And then rental days is equal to 3. And then we can see exactly what he paid on a given date. Because we have the start and end date, we can have we know what the price was on any given day. Does that make sense to everybody? It's actually a pretty complex thing. I guess as a good example, when I first came to my job, we were using a product. That didn't have this kind of thing with student information, which is crazy. So like as we were tracking, when students came into our school system, when they left, historical grades and all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, we had to track okay, is this student, how many credits are they taking at any given time? And to be honest, the university probably does a very similar thing for FAFSA, because you guys have to take so many credits a term to qualify for different levels of FAFSA. And so for every enrollment, you have a start and an end date. But let's say 3 days, or let's say 20 days into the term, you drop so many classes and you end up dropping to a half-time student. Well, you were a full-time student for those 10 days. So they will start date that at the beginning of the term, end date the first one when you drop the classes, and then you'll have a new one that starts the next day that goes to the end of the term, or it just has a null end date, similar to this. So basically, if we want to track historical records and current records, we can have a start date and an end date. All right, and I've rambled on for quite some time. Is this making sense to everybody? Is there anyone that's just like, I am so lost right now? And mainly what I guess I'm asking, does the logic of what we're doing here make sense? I don't know if silence is a good thing or a bad thing. Okay, makes sense. And no one said no, so speak now or forever hold your peace. But so anyways, that's basically it. Now, I didn't give you the entire solution. There's still a little bit more to figure out because they have an inner join to a common lookup. And I don't have all the columns that you need selected here because essentially what we're doing is we're preparing to insert into price. So if you take a look at the price table, if I pull up my instructions here, if we take a look where we create the price table, which I think we did in lab 6. Let's take a look at lab 6. Week 6 instructions. Create the price table. So if we take a look at price, you'll notice we have item ID, price type, active flag, start date, end date, and amount. So you're actually, we didn't have price type, but that's easy enough. And that's what you actually do the inner join to common lookup for. So at the end of the day, when you have your select list, it should look like this. Because if I were to add price type, which I don't have my common lookup set up, but I could add one sysdate, one and sysdate. Well, let's make sure I have that first. Select everything from system user. Let's make sure we have one. Yep. So my sysadmin is 1. So, I could do this and I'm only one column away from being able to insert into price because now I have my who audit columns and all that kind of stuff. So when you finish that, that's kind of what you want to do. And it kind of has that there for you in steps 4. If I come down here. Yeah, and it gives you a nice little output. You should have 135 rows. And the important thing that we want to take a note of is that on our, at the very end, where is that little example here? You'll notice that it has this and not. Because what we want to do is we want to filter out any instances where we have old movies or new movies that are active flag no, because that doesn't exist yet. So like down here, we would say where not, and we could say sysdate, because we're looking for our new movies. Sysdate minus I dot release date is less than or equal to 30, and active flag is equal to no. Basically, because we want to get rid of any historical new movies. So, for example, in the case of our, in my case, Hocus Pocus, which is a new movie, in my database, it's active flag. We have the yes ones because it's new. This is all we're charging right now. It's never been historical yet. So these ones up here, we could predate those, but we're not going to worry about it because we haven't done it yet. And so we don't have any historical new movie prices. So that this clause right here, the where not, it gets rid of those. Let's make sure it gets rid of those. So now if we go back up and take a look at our Hocus Pocus, what did I do here? Because it doesn't have them at all. So apparently I've done something. That's what we're missing. Quote, parentheses make a big difference. So in this case, just so you understand what happened there, because and is a keyword, if without these parentheses, it reads the same as this. So we got it where not this, and we got rid of, and our active flag is equal to no. So we only have active flag equals to no right now, if that makes sense, because it acted on its very own. These are two separate statements without those parentheses. But with the parentheses, now it's combined. So it has to meet both of these together. It's a new movie and it's active flag. So now, there we go. That looks better. So let's take a look at our Hocus Pocus. And now you'll notice that our Hocus Pocus no longer has 6 records. It only has 3, and they're all active because it's a new movie. So anyways, I'm going to let you guys take it from there. It shouldn't be too crazy. You guys should have the basic format. And I'll let you go from there. How many records did I have? 129 records, and that's just because I'm missing the items for the new movies that you guys insert in lab 6 because I haven't done that mine. So you should have 135 records because you insert 3 new movies and each one has 6 records. Yeah, the math checks out. Should be around 135 records by the time you're done. Does anyone have any questions about the lab, about case statements, about cross joins? Alrighty. Well, I will let you guys go get started. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and good luck this week.